Good morning. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Louisville Metro Water Pollution Control Board to order. Again, thank you for your attendance, and I think we should proceed. Brother, do we have a quorum?
Not today.
So we don't have a quorum today. Any introductions, Mr. Talley?
No introductions.
Public recognitions?
Yes, I would like to make one, and so it is with a certain amount of sadness, but with much, much more appreciation that I have to announce Bill Jacobs' resignation from the board. Bill has served long and diligently, dedicated, and provided dedicated leadership. He's been here, I think, since July 10th of 2008. So he's served this board for quite a while. And while I will not read his entire letter, I would like to read just a part of it. Dear Mr. Talley, it is with a heavy heart that I must inform you of my resignation from the Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control District position. I have enjoyed my time working with the other board members and the staff of APCD and applaud the good work being done in our community by this wonderful group. I would like to leave quietly and without any send-off. Keep the ship heading in the right direction, and please pass along how much I enjoyed working with everyone, respectively, William Jacob. And so, with that, again, just want to acknowledge his many, many years of service, and then also point out that according to bylaws, the board needs to be prepared to make a nomination for a replacement to his assistant chairmanship at September board meeting. Anything else, Stacy, we need to make the board aware of in that regard?
There are some restrictions legally on who can serve as vice chair, such as political positions and that kind of thing. So we'll have to narrow down the list of potential nominees, and we'll discuss that with the chair and discuss any recommendations at that time before the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Talley. Moving on, the minutes of the lights meeting have been submitted for your review. Are there any corrections or updates to the meeting minutes? Hearing none, the minutes of the lights meeting are approved. Public comment, Mrs. Hamilton?
Not received any this morning. I do have one comment of my own since Mr. Sullivan just closed the door. It's our understanding that the sound in the room is going to be mitigated hopefully mid-September. So perhaps later in the fall we'll have better acoustics in here for these meetings.
Mr. Talley, any unfinished business?
No, Chairman.
New business?
No, sir.
Committee reports? No committee reports.
Committees have not met. We will be convening some committees coming up in the next couple months for Reg 108, possibly a revision to Reg 208.
Staff reports, Mr. Talley.
Thank you, Chairman Hilton. Good morning to the board. First, I'd like to bring the board up to speed on some of the regulatory requirements that we met over the summer. The first is the air planning agreement. This is annually required submission related to our EPA grant funding. It basically outlines the through guidance that the agency is doing the things necessary to comply with the requirements of the grant. And so let me just give you some of their language to put this in better perspective. The air planning agreement directly supports EPA's strategic goals of core mission, deliver real results to provide Americans with clean air, land, water, and to ensure chemical safety. By implementing the activities and commitments in this agreement, the recipient, which is us, supports the achievement of strategic numerical targets identified for each objective. The recipient's role is to continue to review, validate, report, certify timely, quality-assured data into the Air Quality System, AQS system, since this information serves as the foundation for the environmental measure, which in turn then determines if communities are attaining or maintaining their national ambient air quality standards. And so we submitted that this summer. Additionally, the APA in this program looks at how we implement mobile source programs, and for us, that means working and consulting with other air quality and transportation partners. Checks on whether or not we are implementing NSR and PSD, which is the new source review, and then the prevention of significant deterioration. And just happy to report that the district has worked hard to make sure that we are up to date on all of these required elements. We have also completed and submitted for the EPA the Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control District certification of competency for organizations generating environmental measurement data. And basically, APCD in this regard is demonstrating its competency to generate air quality and environmental measurement data under our EPA 103 and 105 funded assistance agreements. And what they're looking for is that we have developed and have approved all required QMPs, which are quality management plans, and QAPPSs, which are quality assurance project plans. We demonstrate that we are organized efficiently and effectively, that we are staffed and trained appropriately to accomplish the task and meet the data quality goals explicit to this audit requirement. And again, I'm happy to inform the board that we have submitted that required documentation, and we think we have demonstrated our ability to accomplish the goals outlined in that requirement. Locally, we have submitted our 2020 annual risk assessment and audit plan to Metro Internal Audit. The risks covered under this audit are financial, political, and reputational, compliance, and strategic risk. And so for each agency, internal audit for Metro wants to identify what we think, and then there's some discussion if necessary, what those particular risk levels are for each agency within Metro. And so we've completed that requirement and made that submission to internal audit. Any questions about any of those audit requirements? So, a topic that we have discussed at some length here, and I just want to provide the board an update on the work that MSD is doing in the Shelby Park cat urine issue. And so to date, MSD continues to investigate, mitigate, and ultimately look for a permanent solution to this issue. From a mitigation standpoint, they have installed 2 manhole odor eliminators on the East St. Catherine Street, and they routinely check that area 5 to 7 times a week with staff driving through the neighborhood. They are currently working with Fourth Technology. Current analysis and investigation indicates that acetone, which Fourth utilizes in combination with the sewer gas, is the cause of the offending odor. For Fourth's part in this, they are sampling acetone content in the effluent from individual processes. They are looking at it in their wash water from individual processes, and they are also sampling in their neutralization tank wastewater. Fourth is adding 3 holding tanks for the pump over effluent, which will allow them to treat wastewater offline and then thereby be able to control the discharge of effluent over a longer period of time, which should reduce the opportunity for the odor to be produced at a level that would be objectionable to folks in the community. And so we are yet to see if these things will eliminate it, but they are working, I think, fairly diligently to address that issue and looking at those things that might work. So I'll keep the board abreast of how these mitigation techniques have worked, and if in fact some of the things that Fourth is doing will actually move toward eliminating that as an odor issue in that community. In conjunction with that, and I think I mentioned this at the last board meeting, we were going to schedule a meeting with the North Carolina Air Quality District along with MSD just to talk about their experience with the cat urine odor in North Carolina. We did have that phone call, the opportunity to kind of compare notes, compare analysis. It really, I think, confirmed that everybody in this regard was on the right track in terms of what we were looking at. And so a productive conversation with North Carolina as we go through this process. On this past Friday, EPA had its annual visit, took place here in Louisville. We also had staff from the Kentucky Division for Air Quality. This is an annual visit, face-to-face visit between EPA, and it is required that they meet annually with all the air quality, air pollution control agencies. Some of the topics that we discussed were grants and budgets, and from an EPA standpoint, while they admitted there is still some uncertainty in terms of budget, their current feeling is that our funding will be consistent with what we've had in the past. So we're not expecting any cuts, and we think things will pretty much hold the status quo in terms of our funding. Data and monitoring, APCD is in a good place. As we discussed earlier, all of our current submissions are in place. Approved QMPs, QAPPs, and then all of the submittal requirements. There was a review of the national ambient air standards, including our SO2 redesignation request, and we're making a request to be moved to attainment from non-attainment, and that is currently working its way through the EPA pipeline. So I will not venture a timeline on that, but they are working on it. We talked a little bit about our upcoming work to address our ozone non-attainment status, and so as that process ramps up, we'll obviously talk to the board more in depth about that. And then lastly, we were able to update EPA folks that were in attendance about some Louisville specific projects. So we were able to talk to them about the RARE project, our air toxics monitoring, the ozone study, the air quality multi-pollutant and DNMAP project, and then our community engagement efforts. And so it's just a great opportunity to sit across the table face to face and have some open and in-depth conversations about some of the things that EPA is doing, and then likewise some of the things that we're doing to make sure we can answer all of their questions and make sure we're in line and not headed in a direction that might cause us a problem down the road. So all in all, I think that was a very good, very productive meeting.
What's the impact of moving to attainment for SO2?
The only real impact is probably from a permitting standpoint, that we moved from the new source review program to the prevention of significant deterioration. Our area was able to meet its requirements to submit its SIP, so there are potentially penalties that can accrue if you miss a SIP deadline.
Penalties to the district or to the
To the
permit?
community, actually, it's federal highway funds.
Oh, okay.
So we avoided all that, so
Okay.
the issue here is really just paperwork.
We had a second government presentation, and so we had one back in the spring. The second presentation, and we look for these opportunities, was with their Veritas Senior Learning Program. We had about 15 or so attendees in place, and Michelle King and I tag teamed on this particular presentation. So I started with a rather in-depth ABCD 101, and because it was a classroom setting, we had a couple of hours, so we had an opportunity to talk in a little bit more detail about the work that we do here at the district. And then we also were able to talk a little bit more in depth about ozone, given the additional time, and then the status of some of our other criteria pollutants. Michelle then presented on issues more related to the greening of Louisville, and I'm sorry, their topic was Louisville's path to a greener city, and so that's kind of what they wanted to talk about. But prior to Michelle talking about that, I thought that their understanding of the district, the work that we do, it adds some perspective to what Michelle was going to present. Her topics included a discussion of the urban heat island and its effects, its impacts, and then some of the mitigation strategies that are currently in place and that can be put in place in the future. Talked a little bit about Cool 502, a greening, cooling, and conserving, which is a metro sustainability initiative. Again, we did discuss some of the urban heat island mitigation strategies. We talked a little bit about energy efficiency. There was, of course, a discussion about our tree canopy or lack thereof, the work that's being done in the city, the ordinance, what that means, what we're faced with in terms of replacing and improving our tree canopy. We talked a little bit about the Green Heart project being conducted by the University of Louisville Environment Institute. And then we concluded by highlighting some APCD programs that we think are essential and maybe a little bit ancillary, but essential to this overall process. So we talked about Idle Free, how that works in the community, Grow More, Mow Less, our lawn care for cleaner air, the care outreach, its message to individuals for the things that we as individuals can do in terms of addressing air quality. And as always, talked about the Clearing Your Air workshop series. And then we talked a little bit about and gave them a guide to the Air Quality Index and Louisville Air Watch, because we wanted them to be able to take a look at that information and be aware that that's out there. It was a good presentation. We had great questions and interaction from the students that were in attendance, and as always, that's the type of event that we look to do more of, and so we'd like to do them in Durham and any other universities, so any contacts that you have, we are more than happy to get out and do those and look for those opportunities. All right, let's get a little bit of a lightning round of updates. So these are just some quick hitters. We are working with facilities to finalize a new lease for our Cannons Lane Air Monitoring Site with the Louisville Regional Airport Authority. I think we are pretty close to completing that lease, but that work will continue, and then obviously I'll let the board know when that is completed and then give you the details of the new lease.
Do you pay, does the district pay for the lease?
We will. The original lease was about 15 years, and so it was paid for back at the beginning in a lump sum, and so we have not had an annual lease expense there, so that will be something new for our budget. I was interviewed by both WDRB and WLKY last week about the proposed state legislation to end RFG, which is reformulated gas, here in Jefferson County. Both of those were aired on the evening news on both of those stations. And just very briefly, my real position was that we will work to address our ozone non-attainment status, and RFG, along with all other ozone reduction strategies, will be on the table as we start those discussions and work with the stakeholder groups. And so kind of left it at that in that interview, and that really is where we are. We will put all those issues on the table, and we'll decide with the community what will work best to help us meet the ozone standard. Yesterday I was on WLOU radio, and so the talk show, and the name of that time, In the Loop. And so it is a metro radio show, but it was just a good opportunity again to kind of reach that market, talk a little bit about APCD and some of the things that are going on in the community. We didn't get any calls yesterday, so it was an opportunity for us to just get information out there that we'd like the community to have. And then lastly, our Clearing the Air workshop series continues. Our past presentation this past Monday was on ozone. We had improved attendance over the summer, and so as kids get back to school, we saw an immediate uptick in attendance, and so we'll learn from that and probably not have the series during the summer in the future. But it was good to see folks in attendance. We had a lot of discussion and interaction. Next month's topic will be land use planning and air quality, and so I just want to make appeals again. If you have not had the opportunity or the chance to get to one of the workshop series, please come out, take advantage of the presentation, be able to participate. It's just a good opportunity to learn about particular air quality issues and then interact in a much more informal atmosphere, ask questions. A lot of discussion goes on actually after the meeting when folks can interact one-on-one with ABCD staff and ask questions and have a more in-depth conversation about the issue of particular concern to them. So it is a good series. We will continue to do this, and we will continue to look for ways to increase participation by community members. And any help from the board in that regard would certainly be appreciated. As part of the director's report this morning, we do have a presentation entitled "Every Commute Counts." It is a rebranding and update of the Ticket to Ride program, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. And then following that, there will be a short presentation by Tom Nord about the Green Heart Project. But first, please, let's welcome Stacy Bergen from Every Commute Counts, which is a KIPTA program.
Thank you so much for this opportunity today. I really appreciate it. How many of you are familiar with the former Ticket to Ride program available for KIPTA? Okay, that's great. We rebranded in May, late May of this year, so this is all relatively new still. And I'm gonna go ahead and just tip you off if my presentation up here is a little different from the slides. Had a little technical difficulty this morning, just bear with me. I'm hoping it won't happen, but you never know. Better to go forewarned. Basically, for those of you, and I'm talking to the board who is probably very aware, obviously, of our interaction with KIPTA, air quality standards, the SIP, but our program came about basically because we want to reduce single occupancy vehicle travel in order to improve air quality. And so we have been Ticket to Ride since 2000. We operate and administer a van pool program. That's how most people know us. But we also offer ride matching and ride sharing services, and we've done that for quite some time. And our service area basically is the entire KIPTA region, which is 9 counties, 7 counties on the Kentucky side, 2 counties in southern Indiana. So if your trip begins and or ends in any of those counties, we can potentially help you find a rideshare match. And I'm pretty sure that you all are probably very well informed about the air quality benefits and impacts of ride sharing. Global pollutant sources, obviously very contributory to air pollution in this particular area. That causes a number of other issues, so we are looking for different ways to help out. And our message is basically, even if you can't do it every day, if you do it just, once a week, you have the potential to help out a whole lot in terms of your overall impact. As I mentioned, we're all about reducing single occupancy vehicle. We currently operate and administer 66 van pools in partnership with TARC. All of those, with the exception of 2, run through Louisville Metro. So somewhere between 5 to 15 cars for each one of those van pools do not travel through Louisville Metro every day because the van pool does instead. We are seeing a larger change in the mindset. Commuters are more interested in finding other ways to get to work. They're not interested in just driving alone anymore, which makes our job that much easier. We're also very aware of the Louisville Metro goal, reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. We know that the area is continuing to grow. Our concern is that does lead to longer commutes as leapfrog development continues to occur outside kind of the core area. And so we'll continue to work with community partners, but we've been partnering with APCD and CARE for decades now, and we'll continue to do so. Just a little bit about the greenhouse gas reduction. So we want to be your trusted resource, and we're working more in partnership with TARC. TARC is kind of reevaluating what they're doing right now. They're under some new leadership. We want to basically work together to say, we don't care how you get there as long as you don't drive in a car by yourself. That is going to be our primary message moving forward. We want you to use us or TARC. We want you to use scooters. We really don't care how you get there as long as you don't ride in the car by yourself. You may have seen some of our new vans. They're pretty, eye-catching, I think, compared to what we had before. But this is us. This is our new mark. It was kind of funny. We actually had a person say, well, we were going to call Ticket to Ride, but then we saw your all's website, and we decided to call you all instead. So we're pretty happy that it's working. And speaking of our website, everything is branded. We're very fortunate we were able to do this kind of all at one time. We also have an area where you can log in and log your commute. You can look for a rideshare match online, kind of serve yourself in case you want to do this at 6 or 7 o'clock at night or midnight, depending on what shift you work. It's pretty responsive. Just some information. We have about 2,500 registered commuters in our database for ride sharing. Approximately 500 of those are our van pool members, so everybody else is kind of there. 1/3 of our van pools do travel to Fort Knox on a daily basis, and then downtown Louisville is our second largest draw from areas like Radcliffe and E-Town in southern Indiana. And then our 3rd most popular area is probably Frankfurt. People commuting from Louisville Metro into the Frankfurt area, basically for state and some federal jobs. Basically, it's all mat-based, our system. We also incentivize commuting and trying to get more people to log their commute. Unless you're a KIPTA employee, if you log at least 4 non-SOB trips with us a month, you're eligible to be entered into a drawing. We give away basically gift cards every month, but it's a little something extra to say, hey, we really appreciate you doing it. We can do it also at a work site level. If employers like Humana, actually we're in talks right now with Louisville Metro to do it with them, wants to compete work site against work site, we can organize something like that through our technology. It's fairly robust. Just to give you an idea, you really can't see, this is the calendar where you actually log your commute, and then every person who logs their commute gets to define their time period and actually see how their commuting patterns are impacting the community. So when I log my commute, because I get to carpool every day, I get to, at the end of every month, look and see, okay, how much money I saved, which is great, but also how much I impacted the area by not putting out additional greenhouse gases. So that's pretty good for those of us who are interested in environmental impact. And this is probably our best kept secret. We also administer the emergency ride home program. If you register with us, and there's absolutely no cost to register with us, as a transit user, bicyclist, carpooler, vanpooler, you're eligible for our emergency ride home program. It's a safety net. So say you take your carpool to work, your child calls and says, I'm sick, I need to go home. This will allow you to get a cab or transportation network service like Uber or Lyft, get home, take care of what you need to, and we reimburse that trip 100%, up to 100 miles 4 times a year. So people often say, well, I'm afraid that something would happen, and that's why I don't want to ride share. I'm concerned about that. Well, we have something that will help, hopefully, manage that fear a little bit. And I am Stacy Burton. I'm the program manager for Every Commute Counts. I've been in this position for about 5 years, but with KIPTA since 2000. And I'd be happy to turn it back over to the chair.
Any other questions from the board? I have one question, Stacy.
Yes.
Outside of Nashville, they have a separate lane, I think they call it HOV, to encourage people to ride share and commute. And it seems to reduce congestion on part of 65 outside of Nashville.
Right.
Have they ever considered something around Louisville on 65 or around?
They actually thought about, my understanding is, and this is a little bit before my time at KIPTA, but my understanding is that HOV lanes were entertained and designed as part of the I-264.
Right.
But the geometry for getting people on and off, the exits were too close together, and ultimately it wouldn't be safe. And since that time, I'm not aware of any consideration, that's not to say that hasn't happened, but I'm not aware of any serious consideration to HOV lanes here, yeah, unfortunately.
Any questions from the general public?
Is your enrollment increasing year to year, I'm sure?
Yes, actually, we have had more contact probably in the last couple of months than we have had in the last year due to our rebranding, so that's super positive. We have been partnering with CARE and TARP at things like Waterfront Wednesday events for general outreach. As a matter of fact, I ran into one of the KIPTA board members, Mayor Gahan, at Waterfront Wednesday and just had a meeting yesterday to talk about what's going to happen when the Sherman Minton closes down. Because we've got to figure out how we're going to try to mitigate some of that traffic issue. What we don't want to do is have worse air quality because a bridge is shut down either partially or in full, and you've got people having to drive, longer distances, and everybody's saying, I'm just going to drive by myself. So we're trying to work on that kind of thing ahead, but yes, I will say there's been a definite uptick in enrollment for us recently.
Stacy, thank you for,
There's some question here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Last night, we had, with the West Jefferson County Task Force, we had a meeting with some of the bridge, Sherman Bridge project, and they were saying that they were not under any obligation to do a full-fledged environmental justice assessment. And so I'm hearing you talking about how, you're looking at the concern of increased emissions, proposing a partial shutdown.
Right. I cannot comment on that project simply in terms of what's required because I'm not familiar enough with that project, but I will say that the mayor of New Albany is concerned about how traffic is going to be impacted, and they are taking active steps. And one of the things that's on my to-do list today is to actually contact NDOT and say, hey, how can we be featured on your all's website just as an outreach, a link to us, for people to go ahead and start thinking about, hey, there's an option out there that may work better than just kind of not getting anywhere.
I think the big question was, one of the things is retail. It's questioning how it's going to impact them, especially in Indiana, because people from Kentucky actually use, Kroger.
Right, exactly.
So those are concerns that we have been asking.
Yeah.
We're getting answers, but I don't know if they are as strict as we'd like to see action.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. And I understand that, and that would probably also not be a bad comment or suggestion. I know that Tipton, I don't know how familiar you are with the Kentucky Regional Planning and Development Agency. But that project is now included in our plan and tip. And so we're kind of the coordinators and work between NDOT and New Albany and the public and everybody else who's kind of involved to try to do this as best as we can. And so one of the things is I think that you're doing a great job of is going ahead and making this known now. And that's what we talked about yesterday is at least now we have time. We don't want to get out to just a month before and then have it just kind of go, well, what are people going to do? So hopefully the next year to two will give us enough time to prepare adequately. People will still be impacted because there will be some level of closure, I'm sure, on that bridge. The final solution hasn't been decided yet. But what we can do is try to figure out the best way to mitigate that. And I do think that is on people's radar, but I think the more that you let people know that and go to those meetings, I think the better off we'll all be in the end.
Is there any focus on electric vehicles for either the van or carpool, all electric or hybrid?
Sure. We do not have an electric focus at this time. That is not to say that we haven't entertained and are actively considering a project, kind of a pilot project, that would make use of electric vehicles. One of the concerns that we have right now is charging stations. So we would have to look a little bit more at the infrastructure available for that, but that is something that is actively under discussion right now.
One more.
You had mentioned employers like Humana, but have you touched base like in hospital systems? Because,
Yes, and oddly, hospital systems, any place that has good set shifts, obviously it tends to work out best for carpooling or van pooling, ride sharing in any form. What we find in hospital systems so far is that nobody wants to be tied because you don't know what you're going to have coming in the end of your shift. In other words, if you've got a bunch of nurses who work, their 4 10-hour days or whatever, but you've got charting and then patient turnover at the end of that time, well, nurse A is ready to go at 7 o'clock, but you've got a couple others that aren't going to be ready to go until 8. So while there's a set shift time, it's also kind of loosely applied. But that's not to say we won't keep trying.
Any other questions? If not, Stacy, thank you very much.
Thank you all, I really appreciate the opportunity.
John, you have anything else?
Yeah, we have, information from, Tom Moore.
Hi, everybody. I'm here to talk about a project that ABCD would like to ask the board for some support for, some money. That'll be the ask at the end of this. But right now, the ABCD is working with the Green Heart Project, which is an effort that is being undertaken by the University of Louisville Envirome. You guys heard of the Envirome? It's the new environmental institute at U of L. And what the Green Heart Project is doing is they've taken six neighborhoods in South Louisville, and they're creating a unique opportunity to add targeted air quality messaging in an area where they're doing some activities. What the Green Heart's doing is they've adopted these six neighborhoods. It's South Louisville, I think, sort of west of the airport, Beachmont area. Yeah. And what they're doing is they're going to try to see if they can do targeted air quality things like planting trees, messaging, talking to people about vehicle use, and the effort to be like, if we can work on six, if we can get these things done, can we improve health outcomes in those neighborhoods? It's kind of like biting off a small piece of a big problem and seeing if that will be something that you can scale up to the rest of the city and ideally to the rest of the country. What we'd like to do is we'd like to leverage that, working with Green Heart, to try to do some of our outreach and education messaging via that. In other words, they've gone in, they've laid the groundwork, they're talking to people, they're putting out messaging, they're talking to folks, schools, businesses, organizations, and hopefully ABCD can swoop in and try to see if we can leverage some of that to see if we can get some of our messaging through. And our messaging being stuff like Free Louisville, Healthy Air, through CARE, Block Care for Cleaner Air, Grow More, Grow Less, Clean Air Workshop Series, and just the general ABCD outreach stuff we're doing. Some good examples of that would be, it's kind of like, I see it as like you're trying to sell something and you need leads. We do a lot of outreach and education in Louisville. I mean, we're everywhere all the time. But Louisville's a very, very big city. And, you know, CARE's footprint is even bigger because we go over to Indiana and a couple counties south here. So it's very hard to just cold call everybody. And generally we will. If someone says come to our group, we'll go and speak to the group. If someone says come to our school, we'll come to their school. But this is an ability, this is an opportunity to have a dedicated area where everybody is already sort of engaged and ready to go, and we can come in and hit them with things like idle-free business. For example, if Green Heart has gone door to door, or they've gone business to business, and they've sort of figured out, well, this business seems like they might do something, we can go in there and say, hey, would you be an idle-free business? As opposed to just going randomly around town, which we do sometimes, but this is a way to sort of see if we can sort of piggyback on what they're doing. Now, the ask here is that we are going to come back next month with a formal proposal to the board to see if we can get some of our efforts through this project funded via the Air Quality Trust Fund. We're looking at up to $8,000 to be spent between September 2019 and February 2020. And then during that time, we'll do updates on what we're doing, let you know how the money's being spent. But some of the things we're looking at doing with the money is digital messaging, maybe targeting some, you can do things with digital messaging where you can target specific parts of town. That way we would be able to hit the people who live in these areas with online messaging for the CARE campaign, Care for Cleaner Air, just a digital air quality messaging. We would be doing things like physical messaging, stuff like idle-free signage. These signs, they're not super expensive, but they do have a cost. And so buy some idle-free signs for businesses and schools, postcard mailings, maybe get all the addresses clustered in an area and do a mailing that we can say, we can use the Green Heart Project logo to say this is part of that. And, you may know about this already, so here's something more you can do. public art, bus stops, things of that nature. Also community presence, participation in tabling opportunities at area events, participating in attending neighborhood association meetings, partnering to offer clearing the air workshop opportunities in that area. Like the Clearing the Air workshop series is great, not just because it's something we do monthly at the library, but they're actually sort of portable. We can take each workshop, specific workshop, and take it to if you want to hear about ozone, we can bring that to you. If you want to hear about ABCD 101, we can actually bring that workshop to you to recreate it for your group. So also there are 4 schools in the study area, and this is an opportunity for us to take our I Don't Think School message to those schools. Again, hopefully they're primed and ready for this, and so we can just go right there and say, here, it's all ready to go. So again, we'll be coming back in September with a formal ask. You have this in your board packet. It's the initial outline of what we want to do. And you have me take it back to Carl.
Okay, well, thanks, Tom, and I'd like to encourage the board members that are present to review this and be prepared to come at the September meeting, and maybe we can vote on the proposed budget. Tom, thank you very much.
And Green Art's willing to provide the databases and
Fully.
partner with presentations and what.
Oh yeah, fully. They're totally on board, and they're just looking for partners at all. I'm sure they're talking to other groups in town. It's like we can just sort of bombard this 6 neighborhood area with, I mean, the main goal is that they're trying to do a health project to see if they can improve health outcomes, because that's a big thing now. People want to know if you're going to do something healthy, you're going to talk about air quality, you're going to talk about this or that. Show us some data. Show some data that it's working. This is going to really capture an area and see. And like I said, everything from tree planting to commuter decisions. Who knows? There's all kinds of things that got cooking up, but we can be a big component of that.
I will send this out to the board.
Anyone that's not present, so they can be familiar with this proposal, so we can be prepared to vote in the September. Thank you. Tom, very good. Any questions from Tom?
And thank you to that, one last piece of that. It's also a great opportunity for us to see if this kind of localized, direct marketing approach will help, because there are, in the future, I think, going to be opportunities for ABCD need to reach a more localized part of our community. And so if we see good results from this, it'll give us kind of a blueprint of how to address some of our other communities when that need arises.
So you have metrics that you can look to based on the response from folks who will gauge success. You'll have metrics in place to look at responses to gauge success.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what the time frame is for them to analyze their data points and then give a report back?
I don't have the answer to that, but I do see that the time we were looking to use this money was going to be from September through February 2020. So I'm assuming the project was maybe sort of in there. Although, I think it's going to take a while to really get great data on health outcomes, but I think they're going to try to see, so this could be a long-term project, but hopefully they'll start to see something right away. Because people want to get that. Everything's very data-driven. People want to see your outcomes, and they want to see hard numbers. So, but I can't tell you what exactly that's sort of data.
Dr. Moon, we'll try to provide you with that timeline where this project will fit within the Green Arts project's timeline so that you can see.
And what their measurement points are.
Yeah, and next month, Michelle King, who's been more intimately involved in this process, she's at another conference this morning, so she's not here. But hopefully next month she'll be available, and she can probably answer some more detailed questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Tom.
That concludes my report this morning.
Well, thank you, Mr. Talley, for an excellent director's update. Now we're moving on to the air quality data. Did most of you had a chance to review the data, the ozone and the PM 22. So that was pretty good. Any questions on the enforcement status summary that was submitted? Also, the excess emission commission report, looks good, no questions. And the last one is the complaint investigation status summary. Any questions regarding? Well, reports seem to be in order, thank you very much. Before we dismiss, Dr. Lee has an announcement she wants to make.
There is an event going to be held at the Kentucky State Fair this coming Saturday all day. And it's sponsored by the American College of Chest Physicians Chest Foundation, which is the, so they've kind of asked, people from the American Lung Association to help volunteer for this all-day event. And what it consists of is, it's called the Chest Lung Experience. And so it's going to be a booth in the south wing where all the other health things are, like the blood drives and such. They're going to actually have multiple stations for like spirometries, for actual testing, so that way, and then to have information and data available, and so forth. So, so I'd just like to, have people to either stop by or spread the word that, so just like, all the other health screenings that they do during the state fair, this is one place where they're going to try to do a big outreach for us. So I appreciate if you could spread that word.
This board meeting is adjourned until September 18th. Thank you very much for your time.